Team Secret and Evil Geniuses are squads which last year, 2015, were at different times of the year considered the best team in the world. I mean, with Secret, obviously not many of the players that are in the current lineup were around then, but that lineup was able to win the 4 tournaments around the summer and go into TI as one of the favourites. Admittedly, they didn't do so great there. Evil Geniuses, obviously they shocked the world winning DAC, but then it was a hard road back to winning TI5, at which point in time many considered them the consensus best team in the world. Very impressive the way they won that tournament. So you consider these are two teams that last year, at least core components of them, and collectively were two of the best teams in the entire world. And here we are at the third Dota 2 major, and they've both finished in last place in the tournament. Secret lost every single series in the tournament, and EG only managed to beat Mineski in terms of winning a series. Yet these are squads which, even despite the fact Secret is a different component, you look at the actual ingredient parts of these two squads, and the talent is there that these should be two of the best teams in the world. These should be two teams competing to win the title collectively with the shared talent pool. But you look at the way the talent is fit together and which team they're playing for and the synergies and the roles they're playing, and some of it just doesn't make any sense. And as a result, there's an incredibly underwhelming set of results from them. And these two squads are in last place, despite all they've accomplished in the past. Now, one of the real reasons why this is so shocking to me and why I wanted to make this video is because, first and foremost, one of the stupidest parts, I think, of the fact that these two teams are in last place now is that they both followed a pattern which is so illogical to me, where both attempted, on a very naive individual basis, to upgrade a player when they already, in theory, had one of the best teams. So, the Team Secret won the Shanghai major and had finished top 2 at the other major, the Frankfurt one. Admittedly, there were a bunch of tournaments between that where they didn't do so great, but they won the Shanghai major. Right after the tournament, they make the player swap. Artezy comes back in. They're bringing Universe from Evil Geniuses. They don't even have another tournament to see what would happen at the next one. Would we stay at that sort of form? Have we learned something as something connected? Have we developed as a team? Has this player had a breakout tournament? No, they don't do any of that. They try to upgrade certain positions, and in doing so, end up in a worse position where now they're last place at the next tournament. Evil Geniuses won the International, the ultimate pinnacle of Dota 2, the one tournament that's supposed to be the hardest to win, that you want to win, that's the ultimate moment of your career. What did they do right after that? Immediately fuck with the team, bring Artezy back in, someone who's shown throughout his career to be divisive within teams and have difficulty at the biggest tournaments, bring in this fantastic player. But in doing so, not only lose one of their players, the 4 position, Awi 2000, but also then swap a very, very good carry player over to the 4 position, a position he hasn't played for years and years and years. Definitely not in modern Dota. What happened to them? Well, okay, in their particular case, it's not that they became bad, but they weren't winning tournaments from then on. Then they were just an also-ran. They were a good team who could make it deep, but then they suddenly wouldn't win in that same incredible fashion they would. They wouldn't have those rally from behind wins. They wouldn't outdraft everyone every game. They wouldn't have the times when they just team fight like gods and re-engage and get that sick. They just didn't have the same sort of team. And so the problem here with the pattern is, first and foremost, to me, it's ridiculous that you win a huge tournament, some of the biggest tournaments in the history of Dota. You win one of those tournaments and you don't even try the lineup at the next team. You don't even try and see if I can repeat. You just immediately do the naive on paper upgrade that actually makes you worse. And the reason why it's an interesting pattern is because the reason it makes you worse to do these upgrades like this is because it's not that the upgrade's wrong. These players on paper are better than the player they're replacing. In certain cases, like Artezy over Wii, and obviously, in theory, well, I mean, I guess, well, yeah, obviously Artezy over having Aoi, except that one didn't make as much sense because it was role swapping Fear down. So the real question is, does Fear also work as well at the 4 position? But anyway, the reason why the paper upgrade doesn't make as much sense to me is because what you have to ask is not just, did you upgrade a player or did you get a very good player into your team? You have to ask, what is the hit or what is the effect on your team's style or identity? Now, the way I model teams in competitive games, and I do this from basketball through to hockey, through to Counter-Strike, through to League of Legends, through to Dota 2, I have a general hierarchy I think of as to how you should create a team. So first thing you do is it goes identity. That's the top level. You have to start there, figure out your identity as a team. Then you have to figure out your strategy as a team. And then finally, you figure out the tactics to implement the strategy. And so what we're saying here is identity. This is the personnel of your team. So for example, if I have a team where I have fantastic player at carry and a fantastic player at the 5 position of support, then I'm going to have That's my identity as a team. The other players, maybe the more supportive or the more facilitating players, maybe my offlaner isn't trying to be some huge farmer. Whatever style I'm going to play is going to be predicated based on the identity of the team. Once I understand the identity of the team, I'm then going to set in place the strategy. What is the approach, the general strategic approach, the large, big picture, broad strokes approach that's going to get this team wins, that's going to allow it to be successful, and what's the general area from which those wins are going to come, and what are the weaknesses we're going to shore up. Then you go to the tactics, which is how do you implement that broad strategy in this one game here, in this one tournament here, in which heroes you pick, at what timing. So I'll give you an example. We'll use this breakdown for a famous team in history. We'll go with the International 3 Champions Alliance. So, okay, Alliance, what's the identity of this team? Well, we're going to start out, obviously, who are the star players? We've got S4, we've got Loader. So we know our star players carry mid. These are the superstars of our team. We know this is where a lot of our strength's going to come from. So what was the strategy for the team? Famously, a fantastic split push team. Now, they were very good in other areas. They obviously could play team fights, etc. But this is a fantastic late game split push team. Now, what's the tactics? Now we need the specific heroes that can let us late game split push. We need the specific heroes in terms of the supports that can groom these late game split pushing champion heroes. And so you can see how the structure of the team, it makes sense that this was one of the best teams in the world, one of the best teams of all time, because they've got all the boxes checked. So in this scenario, when Evil Geniuses makes these changes, do they retain or improve their style and their identity as a team? No, not really, actually. Immediately, the identity becomes confused because, okay, Artezy's back. How will Artezy and Samael work out? Who needs the help? Who needs to be babysat? Because obviously, Fear used to make a lot of room for Samael. Now that we've got Fear going into the 4 position, what's his role going to be in the overall team? What's his impact going to be on the game? Because one thing that actually Aoi was very good at was playing those 2 or 3 champions that he was sick at. Visage, obviously, fantastic Naga. He could play Techie. He had these certain specialist niche picks that he could play in a very effective way in the team fight when it happened. What's the style and identity of the team? It's confused, and that's why the team's confused and the results are confused. And that's why, even if you get the strategy, which is not going to be as good if you don't have the identity set, the tactics almost don't matter at that point in time. You can come up with the most genius tactic ever. Can you pull it off? Does it fit in your strategy? Do you even have the personnel, the identity to do so? Who knows? In Secret, this is even worse because they got it right a couple of times, then made these roster moves and fucked it up again in every respect. So, you consider what's going on here. One of the other problems for these 2 lineups is because of when the roster moves were done, they haven't played any tournaments. They're just coming in fresh to one of the big tournaments of the year. With this lineup, they've failed. They're out the door. Bye. That's it. And in Dota 2 tournaments, you get a lot of chances here. You don't just get rushed out the door in the group stage. You get to go in the bracket stage as well. And boom, they're right out immediately already. Why haven't they been playing any tournaments? Why haven't they been playing any qualifiers? At least testing things out, learning from this, developing it, understanding the model themselves of what doesn't fit here, what do we have to do here, and in the future, is this going to be something we're going to have to look to as a problem? Maybe this player has to swap position, or we're going to have to get someone else here. Are they even considering these things? Now, I will say it's not entirely their fault. This is one of the worst things I think about the roster lock in Dota 2, is that it almost encourages this sort of bullshit, last second people just dodging into teams and fucking over their old team, and their old team scrambling and trying to get someone, but everyone else is locked. Like, what a terrible system that is. Like, I think it's got a lot of flaws with it as a system. And yeah, it doesn't have to happen. The players should obviously be more reasonable and not just take and abuse this system and actually take advantage of it in as much as try and build reasonably and think for yourself. Because if you're dodging into a team last second for a tournament, you could have this happen to you. On paper, it might look sick. You play with all these players you wanted to play with, super sick, great, all the rest of it. Play a few scrims, it all goes well. You have no idea if your team's good yet. And because you've never been battle tested, you've never gone into battle with that team, been down in a game or had a lead and thrown the lead and then had the other opponent outdraft you, you have no fucking clue what your team's capable of. You haven't even test drive the car at this point in time. You're already entering a race with it, basically. So that's a problem in itself. Then you got to go to the players in these teams. Because like I said, collectively, you put these 2 squads of talent together. There's some fantastic players in these teams. Some of the best players in the world, potentially, at some of the positions of these teams, or at least contenders, either in the past the best, or contenders for those positions now. But you watch them play Dota 2, you wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't believe these were some of the best players in the world, or squads which you could make world beater teams out of. So let's go player by player. So the first player I've got to go to, I'm afraid, is going to be Universe, offlaner of Secret. Because here's a guy who had unending praise when he was an Evil Genius Geniuses. You know why? Because he looked fantastic in Evil Geniuses. He looked like, wow, this is maybe the best offlaner in the world. What a god. Like, he doesn't always have to have a huge impact on the game, but then the games he does, he just takes over and you're like, holy shit, the three positions just carrying the whole fucking game here. What insane versatility they have as a team. You know what, though? You see him playing in Secret now, and you consider he wasn't the god before he came into Evil Geniuses, and I have to say, it feels like a lot of what allowed him to be godlike was, first of all, comfort level of playing with players like PPD, like Fear, guys who are going to team play around you, who are going to put you in position, who you know exactly what he's going to do, what I'm going to do, and what we need to do collectively to contribute to our overall team identity and style. We know where we're going to get the wins from. Without that, this guy's looked like a mess. I mean, he hasn't looked godlike at all. It really makes me wonder what effect PPD's drafting, the drafting of having so many good players with versatility on Evil Geniuses, and then the team play, the synergy between players on Evil Geniuses allowed this guy to look a lot better and to look like the best at his position. That's what's fantastic about him in Evil Geniuses. And this has always been a problem in all team games in history, which is that when you have fantastic, like, the identity makes sense, then you have a good strategy, and then if you have a genius, someone making great tactical plays, and someone calling the right tactical plays, and then players who fit together, who play either experienced, working together with synergies that exist, or ones that naturally make sense, in that scenario, then each part of that looks better than they actually might be individually, because collectively they can accomplish more. Because this guy over here, one thing I always say about team play is if you understand the identity of your team and you get the strategy and you have the team play aspect down in your team, one of the great things about it is you're not only emphasizing your strengths, but you find a way collectively to cover each other's weaknesses. So you just don't see that guy has a weakness because he's covered in that way, or he's protected through this part of a laning phase, or he's given a champion that can be impactful late if he can't do something early. Whatever the scenario might be, that's a hypothetical, not specifically for Universe. You're not going to notice his weaknesses, and then you're going to see what he brings to the team, and since the team's winning, everyone's going to look good. Unfortunately, Universe has been a real victim of this move to Secret, and he's looked pretty exposed at this tournament. Then you got to go to Aoi. So Aoi was the guy kicked out of Evil Geniuses, and I thought at the time, what a bad move this is. I understood the politics of it, which is you want Artezy back. I get it. Artezy was fantastic. He might even have been the best player at the world around TI5. He was still good when he was in Secret, even though they all went to shit. Wasn't him that I felt had the problems at that tournament, although admittedly, he did play... It felt he played a little bit petulantly, like he was like, I'm doing my job, what the fuck are you doing? There's almost that sort of vibe you had from the way he was playing. He did his best, but was he playing for the team as much? I don't know in that scenario. Now, the problem with removing Aoi to me was, on paper, the move to me, if you want to get Artezy is, okay, you know what, Fear, thanks for your years of service, mate. Salute you. You've got wrist problems. That's a shame. Come and join the organization as a coach or some sort of sub or a figure who's going to be like a chief gaming officer. Well done. You've had a fantastic career. Sorry your hand couldn't hold up. But no, instead, what they did was they brought in Artezy. Great. And then they kicked Aoi, who was a very good support at the time, admittedly in a very niche particular manner, and within that sort of team, very good. And they brought in Fear there, which was definitely not something you could have taken for granted. So as a result, now we're back in a world where they bring Aoi back, but because of the whole politics, they wanted to keep Fear in with Artezy. They got the scenario where Fear had the wrist problems, so he wanted to go to support, and they wanted to keep him in the team. The problem now is when you bring Aoi back, you don't put him as support again, you don't put Fear number one again, because supposedly this is an option for Fear now. Well, after watching the tournaments that Aoi 2000 has played in Evil Geniuses, this is a guy when he was a support, I really enjoyed watching him play. Don't enjoy watching him play as a carry. This is someone who, doesn't matter how much farm, how much gold you put onto him, how many leads you give him, it feels like he never does anything with the leads. Okay, great, yeah, he was wonderful in Dignitas years ago. Mate, that was like a different game back then. We're talking like years ago, like 3 years ago. You can't be talking about that anymore in 2016. It's a different, well, I mean, do you see Burning out there just carrying every fucking game on his back anymore? No, the world of Dota has changed, mate. You can't be ranking things off what people did in Dota 1 or the early Dota 2 days or fucking Hon, as people for some reason do in Dota 2. I have no idea why people think this way and model the game this way. What have you done for me lately, as Janet Jackson once said? So in Aoi's case, it's not a good carry. He could maybe be a decent carry at a lower level of Dota 2. If he was playing on the team that's supposed to come 9th place, sure, maybe he can be a good carry there. Maybe he can be a standout player. On a team that's supposed to potentially be the best in the world, at the moment, he can't be the carry. I'm afraid that's just the way it is at the moment, and if it changes, great, good on him for improving. But I don't see it at the moment. I haven't seen it since he's joined this team. Admittedly, he's only been in the team a short amount of time. So then you got to go to Fear. Now, let's be real. Fear was much better than Aoi 2000 as the carry, and he was a very good carry in general. Now, I do feel like he got overhyped a little bit. Like, if I was making the identity of the team like I described before, I don't necessarily know that I would have said he's the best, because to me, he wasn't the carry in the sense that he's going to actually carry the game. He played the carry role, and within it, he played a strategic game. He played intelligently, so he could let Sumail have greedy play and good advantages, and he played his key champions and did very well on them. Now, okay, fair enough. If he's got the wrist issues, that's a real shame. But my problem is he actually a good enough 4 player for this team with the current sort of players they have at their disposal? Yeah, not so much. I mean, he's okay, certainly not bad, but this assumption that people had that he was just going to switch to the 4 position and be amazing, and what was the reason they said? Oh, because you know how many people are in some sort of cult when it comes to Fear. Oh, he is the best player in the history of Dota, and he can play every single role at a competitive level. Okay, maybe he can play every role at a competitive level. Can he play every role to the best level? So far, haven't seen proof of it in terms of his time at the 4 position. That's not what I've seen from him. He hasn't looked fantastic, and here's what's crucial. You ready? You ready? I'll say it. He isn't better at the 4 position than Aoi 2000 was. There we go. I said it. That's just the way it is. If you disagree, fair enough. You make your own video, mate. Don't see it. That's why I thought it was a bad move in the first place. I understood the politics of it, but I thought in terms of identity of the team and the style and what you'd give up, I didn't think it was a good move to put him 4. Unfortunately, harsh as this might sound, if he has these hand issues, if he really can't play the 1 position anymore, where I think he is very good and is fantastic in terms of what he opens up for other players in the team, unfortunately, it probably is time to retire, mate. I mean, it's all great. I don't know why this is considered like disrespectful. It's like, this guy's a legend. Yeah, he was a legend at other positions. And he was a god at certain points in time, maybe. Yes. Not anymore. And he's not playing those positions anymore. So Michael Jordan's the best shooting guard ever. But if he said, I'm going to keep playing till I'm 50. Well, Mike, how are you going to possibly do that, mate? It's really hard to play shooting guard. You're not going to be able to get your shot off. No, don't worry. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to be small forwards. I'm just going to try and rebound. Because I was always a good rebounding guard. Well, no, you can't do that, mate, because actually with our salary cap, we can get someone better than that, and we can get someone who isn't 47 years old or whatever he would have been if he'd get playing that scenario. Like, no, you wouldn't do that. I'm sorry, yes, you were a god, you were a legend, we're not disrespecting you, but you can't play for the best team and do that. You can play for, like, some dogshit team at the bottom of the NBA and do that if you want. Do that all you want, mate. You be respectful to us and you go where your skills are appropriate. If you're going to do this, either you can play the carry, you can do what you're really good at, or, I'm sorry, it's not good enough. We want to have an amazing team here. So, as a result, unfortunately, I feel like he's always been overrated in terms of outside of this position, and people, just because they love him so much, because he seems like a fantastic guy and has a great story, great narrative, they let that overpower them, and as a result, he's overrated even now, in as much as you do not see people criticize him. He doesn't get criticism ever for when Evil Geniuses does bad, or when he doesn't do that well at his role. It's always someone else's fault, it's always someone else. Well, guess what? That's disrespectful to other players. That's disrespectful to some fantastic players he's played with, where you're shitting on them just because you're really mad that you can't say that this guy had his issues as well. Admittedly, certainly not the worst player in this team, just isn't a strength anymore, which is something he used to be, and he's taken away a position which also was a strength, a very unique niche strength when Aoi 2000 was the 4 position. Imagine right now, I said this on Twitter, imagine right now if we could just, because to me, Evil Genius is the easiest team to fix. Because obviously, again, we can't make loads of moves. We can't bring Artezy, but we can't do all these moves, okay? Let's say we get the same team we've got now, and all I'm going to do is, I'm going to swap Fear and Aoi 2000 back. So for whatever reason, I give him the amazing shot that they get in basketball in your spine when you're all fucked up, so you don't have pain anymore. I give him that shot so his hand doesn't hurt anymore, and he can play the 1 position. Now I'll put Aoi 4 position. Boom, there we go. I've got a great fix right there. Now what I'm going to do with the offlane, because that's what the problem that they suffered from since Universe left. Bob has been pretty underwhelming. Hasn't been bad, but he's been underwhelming a lot of the time. Certainly couldn't offer to the team what Universe used to. And admittedly, they didn't choose Universe to leave. He left, okay? It's not something that Evil Genius wanted. I mean, the obvious pick, if you could get him, people have been saying it already on Reddit, is Zai. This is the guy who obviously went over to be the offlane in secret, looked fantastic there. For me, he was the player who really did not give up at any time at TI5. He played his balls off, he tried to hard carry them, and guess what? As the 3 position, you can't just carry an entire team on your fucking back, especially when people like S4 are tilting their tits off. Doesn't work, sorry, I'm afraid it just didn't work that way. Still a fantastic player though, and has really shown himself at the 3 position, even though he hasn't played in a long time. So if you could get him, if he was available, there we go. All we've done is a role swap, and now we're bringing 1 person in. That's a fantastic team. Fear 1 position. Sumail 2 position. So Zai 3 position. Aoi 2004 position. PPD 5 position. That's a potential TI winner. That's a fantastic team. Admittedly, they might not ever be able to make that team for reasons we've discussed. Maybe Zai doesn't want to come back. Maybe Fear doesn't want to swap to 1 position. Maybe Aoi 2000 is going to demand he stays at the... Who the fuck knows at this point in time? Anyway, In terms of position swapping, I do think that, I mean, this is something where famously I made a video about it. Maybe I'll link it up there. And here's the thing. I don't claim to be a Dota expert. I just watch Dota for fun. I don't study the game. I don't go in depth on it. I watch the big tournaments. I watch the teams I like. And I make my own observations as I can. And I try to model things. And sure, some of it, my models probably come from other games. And they have to be tweaked a bit. But I see things as I see them. I observe them. And I make the observations I think have some sort of value. So while I don't know all the specifics of the roles in Dota, aside from the very little I've played it and the quite a lot I've watched it, people went way too far assuming that I was saying you couldn't role swap in Dota. Absolutely not. My question is, can you role swap and if you were a god at one of the other positions, be fantastic at the new position? That's where I think it's very overrated, the notion that people do that regularly and that it always works. No, I think it works in a few distinct cases and those guys are amazing. I think actually that in a lot of cases, some high profile ones, it hasn't always worked out actually. And so people seem to just assume, because they want to be optimistic about their favourite player, that it's going to work no matter what. So there's one big outlier I will say about this, because I've already mentioned him, is I didn't know when they made the swap to Secret whether Zai moving to offlane would work. Because this guy was a fantastic support player, and I thought, you know what, this guy was a really, really fucking good in EG. Will it work, though, when he goes over to the offlane? Because he hasn't played offlane in Dota 2 at a top competitive level. Now, here's the thing. He did turn out to be fantastic, turned out to be one of the best in the world, but not for the reasons people gave. What were the reasons people gave? Well, in Hon, he did it. Hon is an entirely different game years prior with some different players around you, and it's a totally different dynamic. So that alone was not the reason he was fantastic in Dota 2. Don't be naive. Likewise, Aoi used to be a carry player, right? He used to be a one player. Here's the problem. That was years ago. He's not that good at it now. Just as fierce support is not as good as it might have been 3 or 4 years ago if we could have. This is not 2011, 2012. We're in a world that's different now, and these positions don't fit. So you can see in most of those cases, you have problems. In the odd case, they're even better at that position, like Zai is. Fair play to him. Now, let's go player by player on some of the others now. So, okay, first things first, PPD, Captain of Evil Geniuses. I don't put a whole lot of blame on this guy, because first of all, the roster moves weren't his choice. They were forced upon him last second. He did what he could. He scrambled. He got the pieces he could. He actually does seem like, despite the fact, because of the hard work he puts in, and when his team executes what he wants and he comes up with the right strategy and tactics, it's true. He can be the best thing in leader. So I understand why he seems like he's arrogant or cocky, or why he has this undue confidence, because at times it is justified. So to me, he's still a fantastic captain. My problem is, when I look at the team he's got now, because of the drastic roster moves last second, he's got a lot less to work with. Not only in terms of the identity of the team, like where the fuck are the stars of the team going to come from? He's got some mail, that's about it. But you go beyond that, and now you look at the pools of heroes of the guys that he's got, he doesn't have the same little niches anymore. He doesn't have the same diversity of picks. Sure, they picked a lot of champions in Evil Geniuses over the last few months. That doesn't necessarily mean they were good on them all, though. So to me, he doesn't have as many options as a drafter. He can't just outdraft everyone every game. That relies upon having fantastic players, great team play, and an overall identity where you know what you're trying to do. They've looked confused at times in terms of what they want to do in this Evil Geniuses team. The one thing I will say about PPD is, to me, his problem, it sounds very cliche or glib to say that he trusted Artezy. No, my problem there is that I think in Artezy, he kept thinking, I can get this guy to buy into my system. Like, I can get him on side. Whereas to me, the key problem with him and Artezy is they are players who should never play together. Sure, when they played together, they had success. They were coming top 3 at a billion tournaments. They've won tournaments together. They've had some amazing games together. At times, they've looked very good together, but they're so rarely on the same page. It's quite clear that their philosophies on how to play Dota are often quite almost mutually exclusive, like don't fit together. It's the kind of way to say it is that they don't often fit together that well, and sometimes they did, but not overall, or not good enough to be a world champion. But at times I think actually there's like a straight dichotomy between the way they think about the games, and it has to be one or the other, and as a result it's not going to work. Especially because when you're the captain, people have to listen. People have to go with what you're going to do, so that then when it fails, you know that at least they executed what you wanted, and now you can look at your own shit and fix what's wrong. If people aren't going to play that way, or they're not going to be as effective, you're never going to get a chance to actually try what you thought was the way this method should be played at the moment. So for me, he's still fantastic. He needs the right players around him. Now you go to Artezy, the other part of that equation. Here's the thing about Artezy. Before all the fanboys go crazy and start crying their eyes out in Dota, he is the chosen one. This guy is the guy where in terms of skill and the impact he can have in the game of Dota 2, he should be the greatest Western player of all time. He should be potentially the best player in the entire world, even with some of those fantastic Chinese carries that have accomplished so much in the game, the 1 and 2 position players. in spite of that, Artezy really could be the chosen one. He could be like what the Sidney Crosby, LeBron James type guys, where they come in and from the beginning you can just see these guys have all the talent in the world. They could be the best in the world. They can be the champions. They can do it all. The problem is, has he though? Not really. I mean, yes, if you look at every game, you look at every group stage game, every online game, every smaller tournament, yes, he has been fantastic. But you look at the biggest tournaments, you look at the all-time great, the hardest tournaments to win, you look at all of history, and you consider the dominant, the all-time great players. You look at the Burning, Howe, Ferrari 430. Has he really been the Western equivalent of these guys? In all games, surely he can be put in that conversation. But in terms of the impact they had, in terms of being that one guy on their team who was going to carry the whole thing, and the team was built around him and it made sense, and he was the tip of the spear. Has he been that? No, he's had his issues in that particular aspect. He's the guy where, for me, he's fantastic at the medium-sized tournaments, has some issues at the bigger tournaments, doesn't quite make it as far as his talent and his team should go. And then on top of that, it feels like it's always like, oh, well, at least I played well in a game that we lost. Like, that, it's just not, that's not what you see from those other guys I'm talking about when they're at their peaks and their teams are the best in the world. This guy is a sick player, but for me, the key area of development he hasn't gotten to and hasn't developed in is his skills have developed as much as you can. He's become individually as skilled as you can. He's even gotten so that he plays well under pressure and he doesn't seem to tilt or choke. And he does seem to be engaged mentally. He does seem to give it us all individually from his own specific style of play. But does he understand sacrifice for his teammates? Whether that's ego, sacrificing something of this guy so we don't have arguments in the team, whether that's sacrificing something in a game so you don't have to try and always be the hard carry, or what about sacrifice in as much as learning about your teammates and figuring out the secret, which is, how do I use my teammates to help me? Like, how do I help this guy on my team so that he can then, in return, facilitate my greatness so that I'm not just being great in a game where everything's disjointed and I lose and I look good, but I facilitate him to be a bit better and cover some of his weaknesses. And in doing so, when he facilitates me, I'm not just the best player, I'm now the best player in all of Dota and my impact is the greatest. That's the disconnect I see in Artezy and his philosophy. And admittedly, I don't know the guy personally, don't talk to him, but when I've looked at the interviews and I looked at the way he plays, I feel like that's the thing I see there that I've seen in competitors in other games, like your Carmelo Anthony's, your Russell Westbrooks. I've seen these guys in other games, and I've seen them in other esports games, and that's the disconnect I still see in Artezy that stops him from being the best player in the whole world and getting all the plaudits that his skills rightfully could claim if he managed to get to this level. Because I think some of those Chinese players I mentioned before had that at certain periods in time, and that's why the teams were the best, and they were the best as well, and we all did just bow before these guys. So that's the problem. He doesn't empower his teammates to then facilitate him. That's my opinion. And also, you can see this in terms of the relationships by the fact that when it goes to shit and when he leaves these teams, he throws them under the bus. He explains why he lost trust in them. And it seems like he always loses trust before they get the losses. That's the sick part. They'll have an early loss. He loses trust before it's even done, before his career's even done with them. He doesn't try to the very end in that sense with his teammates and believe in them and actually think that it's possible to win. He gives up somehow. And so then we're in a scenario where he then throws them under the bus and whatever it is, whether it's passive aggressively or out saying they have problems. Now, there's a great quote, okay, that I was thinking of when I was actually considering making this video. And it's by the NBA coach, Jeff Van Gundy. He used to coach the Knicks in the 90s and then the Rockets in the 2000s. And he said, your best players, star players here, your best players have to unite and inspire the group. Otherwise, they'll divide the group. Now, if there's one way I could describe the flaws of Artezy, it's exactly that. He is a divisive figure. It seems like he doesn't accept responsibility for his failures. Now, he might on an individual level, like he might have a game where he doesn't play to the peak of fantastic skills and he goes, oh, I didn't play as well as I could there. And like, for example, when famously Invictus Gaming fucked him up a bit, oh, Ferrari really showed me up on that game. Okay, he cannot accept on an individual level because in terms of his individual skills, yes, he has a very high standard for himself. Unfortunately, it feels like he's divisive in terms of he doesn't accept responsibility for where he might have played well, but not within the system of the team, or didn't help a teammate out, or emotionally threw a teammate under the bus. He doesn't seem to accept any responsibility for any of that. And that seems to be a problem because why do you think these teams get wrecked in the wake of him joining and leaving them? That's a big part of it. And he splits teams up and it's not just him who leaves. Then it's like a whole team gets torn in half while he goes off and dances off merrily to another team in some little forest somewhere. As a result, in light of all of this collective aspect, not just the individual player, but his impact on the team, the synergies of the team, and the personality and the leadership aspects of the team, I have to say he is overrated. I said this on Twitter, and I'll say it again. If aliens came down to Earth and they read the last 3 years of r/Dota2, the subreddit, they would go away, and then I say to them, okay, here's 2 resumes. And I don't tell them the names of the players. And I give them Artezy's resume, all the accomplishments he's had, the big tournaments he's done, and I give them Howe's resume, former Vici Gaming carry. If I give them these 2 resumes and I say, right, after reading Reddit and the way people talk about certain players, which one do you think is Artezy's resume? They'd pick Howe's. They'd think that, well, he's the god carry, isn't he? Incredible. Put him on any team. He'll figure out a way to be amazing. The team will play around him. You put him in that position. You give him the resources. He'll carry. He'll come from behind. He'll play ballsy. He'll never give up on his teammates. They would never get it right. They'd never realize which one Artezy's was. They'd go, oh, and this other guy, really good, but sometimes downplayed by like fans. They'd think that was Artezy's resume. You guys have overrated this guy so much. It's like you've given him the crown before he's earned it in terms of the other respect. If you want to be a king, you have to behave like a king as well. You can't just be an asshole in certain ways. Not as a personality, but in terms of as a teammate. It's very different from we're talking about personal relationships to team relationships and work relationships in this sense. Now, think about this. This guy is so divisive that I can now do this list, okay? So, it's not like he had one chance, one team, and he didn't make it. This guy had Fear, who was going to be this veteran, who'd calm him down, and who could team play with him, and who could set him up to succeed. Still never won the big one. Still had twice was in that situation, never won the big one. He had PPD, the ultimate captain, the guy who can get you the heroes that you need to carry on, who can set you up, who can have the team based around you and the timings to let you carry the game. Still couldn't do it. Then he went over, he had Eternal Envy, his best bod, in the best form of his career, Eternal Envy, become a fantastic player, won the fucking major, even willing to sort of like, sure, come in the team, you be one of the best players in the team now. We both want to win. Eternal Envy, say anything about him, he definitely really wants to fucking win in Dota 2, because he hasn't won as many titles as his talent should have. What happens? Well, you've seen what happens. This failure here when they finally teamed up. He had Poppy, a fucking legend who can get you the edges in the draft, who can set things up around you and who has made other players fantastic god tier players, and now it's your turn. And what happens? Well, we've seen what happens in these scenarios. He had S4 to be another person who can carry the whole game and who can be the best player in the world, who can be the best mid in the world. He had all this and it never worked. He had all this talent, who everywhere else, all this talent, what's the one connecting factor? They all go elsewhere without him, win, do fantastic things, look better when they play with him. Yes, there's times when they're fantastic, there's times when they're all on the same page, and there's times when it completely breaks down in a way it just doesn't in some of their other teams, when they had lesser players, but players that fit with them and weren't divisive in this particular personality/teammate way. But of course, that's not the way you fans think, is it? No. I mean, remember, it was all Kuroki's fault, you guys said, as to why Secret failed, right? That was right, yeah, guys. I think, actually, that is one of the key moments in the history of Dota 2 that will mean I will never actually ever care or respect about the opinion of the Dota 2 subreddit. Like, I think there's some people on there who make really good points. I think, in general, people will get some of the broad strokes quite right, and there's obviously experts that sometimes will get a lot of the details correct. But the way the majority of people on Dota represented and characterized that whole Artezy versus Kuroki thing, I think was utterly pathetic on a human personal level, where they were so blinded by their fandom, the religion, the cult of following Artezy and how everything he does is wonderful, that they were willing to like overlook everything he did that seemed very immature, and like he wasn't even willing to make compromises and work with his fucking work colleague in a professional team getting paid one of the highest salaries. He wasn't willing to do these things, but everyone forgave all of that. And then this Kuroki guy, who in his statements did an excellent job of outlining the problems, accepting responsibility, seeing where he had issues, acknowledging where other people had strengths but also issues of their own, seeing the gaps they couldn't close, all these things. And what did you guys characterize it as? This mental conspiracy theory that was like, see, the only reason he's admitting his mistakes and trying to be humble is then to magnify and sort of highlight the fact that Artezy didn't. So actually, Kuroki's an evil, like, Littlefinger-esque character who's sort of scheming, and look at this next level, like, reverse psychology to make us actually think Artezy's the biggest asshole ever, even though he's specifically saying that's not the case, and he understands the guy's immature, he's got to develop, which he has. That's not a fucking spoiler, but you guys are so in love and have your fucking Artezy poster on your wall that you're like, oh, Lord Artezy, that smash the heretic Kuroki, but drive him from the land. And what's happened since? Oh, that guy's only in a wicked team that's fucking awesome, that's better than both of these teams now, and is winning. Well, what are the odds? Guess it was all Kuroki's fault, right? Hashtag Kuroki was left. Fuck you guys. Now, okay, Let's go through some of the others. Samael's still a fantastic player. He's in the right position for himself. He's still with PPD. This is all great. I think probably he does regret not leaving now, as there was rumours said, because it hasn't worked out. Admittedly, it's only one tournament. I hope he does. He's still young, so I hope he doesn't have the immature Artezy thing. I think you have to bolt out the gate. This can still be fixed. Things can still be fixed. Admittedly, at this tournament, you did look and you were like, I really wonder what PPD's actual concept was for this tournament in terms of the hero pool they were using. Where were Samael's champions? Where were the champions that he was going to carry the game on and be that fantastic, explosive, like flashy player with incredible flair who can just be so devastating in effect? He wasn't always in that position, and that's why it seemed very weird, the level of resources at times driven into Howie in that sense he wasn't carrying the games. So, okay, I feel like Samael should feel a little bit hard done by, but I don't think he's been a problem in this team. Bulba's been underwhelming. Admittedly, he's replacing Universe, who seemed like the perfect cog in that machine in that position. And unfortunately, I never thought Bulba was some godlike player. And he was decent. I don't think he's good enough for this team, especially in the fact that if you do the identity portion of my model, they're lacking the star players. And so unfortunately, he's not going to play that role. The guy I feel really sorry for is Pylai Dai. This guy is in hell with this new roster. What is he doing wrong? Nothing. He's playing absolutely fine. He's doing everything he can. He can't carry the fucking game from that position. It's not going to happen, is it? Don't be unrealistic. So I actually feel like a lot of the problems, much like with PPD, it's not his fault. It's other things have gone around him. And all he can do is try and facilitate those guys. And if they're not going to carry the game, at the end of the day, what more can he fucking do? So to me, these are just train wreck rosters. These rosters make no sense. When you look back on it, how fucking crazy is it that Secret kicked out Wii? This guy wasn't doing anything wrong. This guy was a really good player. This guy fit his team and the style and identity that they wanted and was a great partnership with Eternal Envy. And he was kicked out for what? Because someone's best buds with Artezy, because Artezy is a fantastic player, but Artezy doesn't fit the same identity and style of the team in that you want. And then just as an offshoot, okay, you kicked Misery as well. Okay, I get it. I get that you wanted to get in this fantastic player who looked so good in Evil Geniuses. You know what? Misery was no joke, mate. And at least we know he fit the team's style and the team was a winning team. And yeah, they had their issues, but when they're at their best, they did look fantastic and it all checked out. The identity, strategy, tactics, it did check out. So I think that was a huge mistake, and I'm not just saying that in hindsight. I already had my skepticism over the move when it initially happened. Because unlike a lot of you guys, I'm not just some coward who just, I like a team and these players, therefore I'm optimistic everything will work out. No, sometimes you're skeptical. Sometimes you think, actually, I don't know how that'll work out. And you dare to say it, like I've done many times, including over the Owie move. But everyone just hated on me and said that I was trying to drive hate towards Evil Geniuses. Absolutely false. These lineups need a lot of fucking work. If not roster moves, they need massive amounts of effort put into the lineup to figure out the identity, then figure out the strategy, and then we'll see what the fuck you can do tactics to implement it. Right now, North American Dota is in big fucking trouble. Now, what's funny is it's not Western Dota that's in trouble. It's North American Dota. Europe looks fantastic at the moment. They have some really good teams. The reason why this is actually kind of a sweet comeuppance in a way, I like fantastic Dota 2 no matter where it comes from. Unlike people like you, I don't wave flags and go, oh God, look at that flag. I've seen that all my life since a child, so I love that flag. I also don't care what part of the fucking Earth's crust you were born on. I care about how you sit at a machine and play the game Dota 2. So personally, I love Chinese Dota. I like when the Koreans do really well. I like when the North Americans do really well. I like when the Europeans do well. What I find is the great teams from any region are fantastic and actually aren't really that region specific and just fit in this little stereotypical box of that is how Chinese Dota is played. But I know you guys all love to not hug every region. So all that bragging about how NA Dota was the best in late 2015, primarily just, by the way, because Evil Geniuses won international, all that bragging about that, and then the obnoxious crowing about how bad Chinese Dota was early this year, and how laughing, haha, look at all their rosters are a mess, and they can't figure out the identity of their teams, and they've got good players who are inhibited by the style of the leader, ROTK, or this player over here doesn't even make sense. Look, what the fuck's Burning doing in that team? Doesn't even make any sense to... You're all laughing and having a great time. Are you having a great time now looking at the same problems from your gods, from the NA teams? It's not as funny anymore, is it? It's a shame, actually, when you see fantastic talent. There's one thing I hate in life. It's to see people with incredible talents who can do things you can't even imagine, who can be the best players in the world and can have a huge impact on the game and do incredible things, and they're incapable of doing it. That potential is locked up. It's hindered Terrible when it's by other people, but even worse when it's by themselves. That's why it's so satisfying to see them overcome those issues and to see them become like when Eternal Envy won the fucking major. How satisfying was that after all of his troubles and all the teams he was in and all the times it looked like he was part of the tilting and that when his teammates choked and then he tried to draft and that didn't work out and he gave it back, all those problems. But when he finally won, how satisfying to see him become one of the best carries in the world and to be an absolutely amazing player. So it's so sad to me that any region has these problems and that the best teams are a clusterfuck like this when you look at the lineup of talent they have, and they should be some of the best teams in the world. So I just hope they get this shit together.